welcome to today's session of the YEGAP Talks. I'm very happy to be hosting and interviewing today our very important guest, who is very special to me as well. But before that, to those of you who have not been to our previous series of the YEGAP Talks, we welcome you to today's session. We had two before, and today is our third session. And YEGAP is all about promoting entrepreneurship and igniting entrepreneurship throughout Asia Pacific. We are a group of entrepreneurs ourselves, of people that really are passionate about entrepreneurship. And through the YEGAP Talks, we hope that entrepreneurs will see that there's other people just like you. People who want to become entrepreneurs will get an idea about what it means to be an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs who are growing currently will also understand and get a sense of other companies that are growing as well. YEGAP is part of the CACCI, which is the Confederation of Asia Pacific Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And we really hope that every single YEGAP talk will ignite some kind of spark within you. Today, we welcome Mangesh, who is the Global Vice President of Frost Sullivan. And he's also the current chairman of the Young Entrepreneurship Group, Entrepreneurs Group Asia Pacific, where he carries with him close to 2 decades of wealth and experience of multiple diversified industries. He has been involved in a lot of projects and enterprises that promote his passion for entrepreneurship and innovation to contribute and improve social business. He's also the founding member and past president of the Nepalese Young Entrepreneurs Forum that empowers and promotes youth entrepreneurship. And he's also the current life member of the Confederation of Asia Pacific Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He has been involved in many kind of projects and enterprises that promotes his passion for youth and entrepreneurship development, along with innovation to contribute and improve socioeconomic era. And in comparison to the last 2 YEGAP talks that we had, actually, he has been an entrepreneur all his life, but has now also transitioned to corporate entrepreneurship and is helping other businesses and startups to grow. So I think today's session will also be very interesting for startups and entrepreneurs that are growing or that want to grow, because obviously that's a very challenging part. So welcome, Mangesh. He will be now introducing himself and what he does.
Thank you, Khulan. That was a very interesting introduction. And based on that, hello, everyone. So as Khulan mentioned, I'm currently the Global Vice President for Growth and AI in Frost Sullivan, but I'm also more passionately the current chairman for Young Entrepreneurs Group Asia Pacific as well. So, but as I start, I introduce myself as an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, starting with my own business, as well as joining the family business and venturing out into multiple aspects of such business as well. Becoming an entrepreneur, we've always come up with some innovative ideas, and based on that, we look at multiple aspects of solving problems and evolving into what we call new ways of doing things. So, traditionally, my family business is into IT. So, as CACCI group of companies in Nepal as well, and we have been into multiple diversified business into IT, banking, and so on and so forth as well. But from a distribution to transformation into what we call a service-based and data center and so on and so forth, I've been involved in starting up a couple of businesses with the family business as well. But based on that, I've also been very passionately working on developing youth and entrepreneurship for over 20 years, especially in Nepal. where we founded with some of my friends what we call Nepalese Young Entrepreneurs Forum, and today it's a very strong 700 plus young entrepreneurs in Nepal, where we promote entrepreneurship and encourage uh, on promoting or becoming an entrepreneur, as we do in YEGAP as well. So, but with this brief introduction, thank you, Khulan, for uh, inviting me to the YEGAP Talks. So with this, I would like to start with where I am today, and then introduce Frost and Sullivan on who Frost and Sullivan is, to start with our talks as well. So the slide that I'm sharing today is not about a corporate presentation. Can you see my slides? Sorry, it's not lost. So it's about the vision of Frost and Sullivan on where we are, who we are, and what we do. So today at Frost and Sullivan, one of the biggest transformation that I've been going through is becoming an entrepreneur all my life, but transitioning and working with a large company like Frost and Sullivan. And why am I working with Frost and Sullivan on the transformation journey is a big question that almost everyone will ask, saying, "Oh, you've been an entrepreneur, now you're in a corporate environment." So growth has always been a very growth has never been difficult as it is today, because of multiple factors. It is not a very straightforward linear challenge today. So the companies are being disrupted, collapsed, and transformed from not only within the industry, but even from factors outside the industry as well. So this has put a lot of pressure on growth and challenges around it. So when we look at that, where Frost comes in from a vision is, how do you maximize your future growth potential? So how we do that is through analytics and also through best practices. So how do we combine that and ensure that we maximize your future growth? That is something that we really look at, and there are multiple tools and engines that we combine to position you on how best can you implement your innovation vis-a-vis your growth. So that is something that we really look into as well. And we've simplified ourselves within the company as well, in the power of synergy, as we call it. The impact that this particular equation provides is what we call through a growth pipeline engine. So in a growth pipeline engine for enterprise impact, as we say, is where we create vision and strategy for organization. We develop brand and demand strategies, and also we work on technology and IP for the future. At the same time, the other aspect of leadership impact is around the growth council. So we're creating a community of CEO and CEO's growth team based on the very exclusive content, and so that the future strategies are developed, and developing growth coaching around it to have us synchronized one team focus as well. So if you look at the benefits and the impact of this, we have aspect into two. One is what we call a leadership impact, where there's a powerful alignment on the vision for the entire organization. So that is something that a lot of the companies are facing difficulties as well, having a common vision and objectives going forward. The other one is rapid implementation at the best practice level. So that's where the huge focus is around. How do you bring in the best practices and inspiration, collaboration as one team, right? So so this is what we bring in as a leadership impact through growth coaching and the best practices that we bring in. And the second aspect is the enterprise impact, where we look at the continuous pipeline of growth system. So this is where we look at the future growth opportunities, and we develop opportunities pipeline, so that there's a continuous growth strategy something like a sales pipeline, right? So, but this is for the CEO for the growth. And the other one is have an innovative growth strategies to stay ahead of the competition on implementing those growth opportunities or the strategies. And then based on that, everything that comes into is what we call a customer experience for the organization. So these are the few things that we envision that will have the continuous growth and the impact of having a future, maximizing future growth potential for an organization or the leader as well. So, so with this brief introduction about myself and the organization that I'm with, Frost and Sullivan, uh, I would like to pass it back to Khulan on taking this forward.
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. I think it would be very interesting actually to our audience to really grasp on this transition of entrepreneur and now that you're working more in the corporate level about this, corporate entrepreneurship. So obviously, because we want to ignite entrepreneurship through our YEGAP Talks, when you think back of it now as an entrepreneur, what was your what was your vision? Like, why do you think you were entrepreneur all your life?
So
what is
thanks.
the nice thing about it?
Sorry, I missed the last.
Yeah. So what is this? What was your passion?
So one of the biggest passion that I had was solving the real problem in life, right? So I look at myself as a problem solver. So when we look at it, when there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. That has always been a biggest passion for me, and that drove on driving solution, bringing products and into the market, and then based on that, developing innovation and entrepreneurship as well. So that has been the biggest passion for me. So when you ask about in that way, you can see that when we work as an entrepreneur, there are a lot of challenges, right? So one of the biggest challenge that I see is we don't know where we are heading, but we feel that is the right direction, right? So that's the beginning of entrepreneurship when we are working in a siloed entrepreneurial world, and this comes with a lot of experience where, well, when I first started working when I was 13 at that time, and I did go to my father's office, and there, in fact, I had to really go and start looking for problems so that I can be a part of that equation in the organization as well. And I think that that's something that ignited entrepreneurship in me at a very young age. And after that, I've always looked for a solution and developed that particular solution, and then brought that into the market, let it be to the customers or even to the organizations out there, right? So that has really ignited entrepreneurship on me. And one of the biggest challenges as a path of entrepreneur, as you all know, is convincing everyone that this is the right uh, idea or concept, and this will be adopted by a mass, right, into the market. So first step goes into that, and the second one, as you see, is raising fund or actually building that particular solution or a product around it, and then getting it on a successful first icebreaker or the first customer or a use case around it, and then expanding to it, right? So there are multiple challenges as we face. That's a very traditional entrepreneurial journey, and we can talk about more as we go. But what I realized was that it's not only the challenges are not only in individuals or life. So when I came across Frost and Sullivan, and when we start discussing about a lot of challenges. Even large organizations look at what I would like to call entrepreneurial spirit, right? So what does that mean is similar: the passion to solve problems, passion to innovate and stay relevant in the industry and grow exponentially, right? And transform for the growing market or the futures as well. And the correlation out there was pretty interesting. And when we started discussing about a few areas of transformation and the future, and especially the disruption that the technology is bringing in, there were a few synergies that came in, and that's where it I, I I found it to be very interesting in terms of the entrepreneurial journey that I've been going through for the last 15, 20 years, vis-a-vis the corporate entrepreneur in a global level. So that matched the what do we call the need and the supply, I would say. So that's where I came in with Frost and Sullivan and said that, okay, this is very interesting. So how do I bring it to the how do we bring the entrepreneurial spirit within Frost and Sullivan so that we work on this particular transformation, so that Frost and Sullivan can exponentially transform and utilize the current disruptive ecosystem, including the technologies and processes and the projects and the platforms to stay relevant in the future for next generation.
So where do you see, so after being an entrepreneur yourself, now trying to really, ignite this entrepreneur spirit, where do you see what do you see is the main thing about having this entrepreneurial spirit? So is it more of the problem solving way? So where do you see that?
So entrepreneurial spirit is always about so when we talk about problem, right? So it can be a very negative or a positive way when you look at it, right? So when we look at the problem or the issue today, relevant to the future possibilities, that's where there are a lot of things that come into place, right? So it comes with a lot of envisioning and the vision that we go through, right? So and reflecting and playing that into the mind, and a lot of gut feeling as well, I would say, into that. So with that particular aspect, when we bring in to the corporate world on a larger global level. So Frost and Sullivan today operates in about 40 countries. And based on that, when we bring that entrepreneurial spirit in a structured corporate environment, it's kind of disruptive, right? So it has to be out of the box, something that is not done. It's not done that way here, kind of environment, right? And based on that, there are multiple challenges within corporate environment vis-a-vis the entrepreneurial environment that we operate on, where the challenges are more around finding a market, funding, and so on. So, but within the corporate environment, market is there. There can be some kind of funding out there to pilot, but again, how do you bring the ecosystem to work together? How do you manage that change, right? And bring that transformation in a cohesive manner so that everybody adopts to it. So it's not only about solving the problem, as I mentioned, right? But also showing the possibility that the impact of solving that problem will bring into the the organization in terms of customer experience, or let it be also around revenue growth or future growth opportunities as well. So, but that's where the balance comes in, saying that, okay, how do you make that business planning? How do you make that business pitch internally? But at the same time, one of the biggest challenge in any corporate would be the timeline, right? So but when you work as an entrepreneur, you work at the speed of light, right? So you know what you're doing. You're building your team. You're so agile. You make you find out that this process or this product is not working. Tomorrow you change it and just go ahead, right? But at the same time, on a corporate in a corporate environment, you need to maneuver in the right manner because there's already a standard procedure there. We have to ensure the brand doesn't get impacted. We have to ensure that the current revenue stream doesn't get impacted, but at the same time, how do you align and take it forward? So it's a very interesting challenge or the equation to solve as well. So, so that comes in a lot, right? Secondly, to answer your question around the entrepreneurial spirit, right? How do you bring that risk-taking capacity in a comfort zone? Right? So what do I mean by that? It like a calm sea, right? So when you're selling, it's very comfortable, right? So similarly, any organization that is generating revenue and growing at certain percentage level is always comfortable on doing things the way it is and very risk adverse, right? Entrepreneurs are very much risk takers, right? So if you ask me, I would say, oh, I'm a person who learned swimming when my coach threw me into the swimming pool and said, save yourself first, right? And then the techniques came in after that, right? So, so similar kind of environment. But we have to be very wary of that particular way of doing things in corporate environment vis-a-vis when I used to be, I'm still an entrepreneur, but when I started organizations, I could take the risk and maneuver it later on. But here I have to anticipate the risk, but at the same time manage the pace so that we do it quickly, and at the same time we predict the risk and then manage it correctly as well.
So now that you've kind of are seeing both sides, you know, do you think that from your perspective, entrepreneurship is something that many like the entrepreneurs are born with, or now having worked in corporates and trying to really create this entrepreneurship spirit within, do you think it can be taught to people and people can actually learn it?
So that's a very interesting, I would say, a trick question, right? But again, that's why I call it a spirit, right? So where the entrepreneurship is something that you develop as you grow, right? Based on your experience and your ecosystem. So I'll give an example around Nepal itself, right? So where I'm from, and there, based on the opportunity to work, right? People are forced into entrepreneurship, right? So entrepreneurs can be from a small shop owner to large organization that they're built. So there's an environment of forced entrepreneurship where you have to think, and it's about surviving and thriving and growing, right? So it's the environment that develops an entrepreneur. I don't think anyone is born an entrepreneur, if you ask me, because being born and not being in a situation that develops an entrepreneurship is very different. But surely you cannot be taught entrepreneurship. That's what I think, right? You can be taught the the theoretical aspect of it, but you cannot be taught entrepreneurship. It has to be something that comes from within and then executed. So it's very deep, I would say, when you ask me that question. So that's why I said, it's a complex one to answer, but you cannot be born entrepreneurship and you cannot be taught entrepreneurship. But you experience it and you develop and you become an entrepreneur, right? So that's something that I've learned over my years as well.
Yes, so I see it in the same way, because definitely nowadays entrepreneurship has become such a big kind of word that at one point some people just think of it as, too big, right? It's something that they're not, it's something that everybody else is. But then again, as you mentioned, in the corporate worlds, I mean, they need to have within their corporate world also this entrepreneur spirit. But on the other hand, entrepreneurs have to develop also this corporate structure, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you start up maybe one person, two people, you start up with an idea, it's very innovative, you don't have a structure. But once you kind of grow and get into 5, 6, 7 years, you also need to develop a structure and get into that corporate level yourself as well, in order to sustain and be sustainable, and I mean exist for many years. So if you now think about your own journey and also the corporate world, where do you think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of, where do you see the main struggle, where a lot of entrepreneurs don't make it? Literally, this one kind of hurdle that you need to get through in order to be sustainable. Where do you see the main challenge? Why a lot of entrepreneurs fail?
Yes, so but that's interesting question, because as a thumb rule, if you ask any PE, VC or the capital market now on startups, less than 10% succeed, right? Or even make it to a sustainable era. So that's because of lot of aspect. Number one is, as entrepreneurs, we think with our heart a lot, and that's one good thing, but it's a challenge as well. So when you do that, we forget the business part, right? And that's that the market fit, the product market fit, and so on and so forth. So that's one aspect, I think, is a big challenge. And the second one is funding, definitely, right? So we go so passionate about what we think is right, and based on that, we overspend, we spend in wrong structure, so on and so forth. So it's not structured. We don't go on prototyping, and we become really pushy on what we really think, and not everything works on that manner. So given that, in a corporate environment, again, that's where I see a lot of synergies. That's why the terminology of corporate venture also came in, right? Where the corporates are working with startups to co-innovate and also exponentially get into that, right? One of the things that I do within within Frost is also really build so let me just explain the role that I play very specifically, right? So I work very closely with the executive board and also the vision, and I'm part of the transformation team in Frost and Sullivan, right? So we work on developing products, we work on developing processes. I'm also responsible for looking at the artificial intelligence and the digital aspect of it, on having the experience around it, working with the team out there, and at the same time bringing in new ideas, right? So there's a vision. How do you convert that vision into strategy, and how do you test that with customers? But at the same time, without impacting the brand, and having a minimum investment into it. And then how do you expand? Now, once you've invested, how do you expand into the market? It's similar with any entrepreneurial journey. With you also, right, Khulan? When you started Lamor, you started somewhere, but at the same time, with that vision, when it started growing, you get into a growth stage, you look at funding, you look at expansion, so on and so forth, right? So it is similar. It's just that the structure is there in the corporate world. That's what I see. But on the entrepreneurial world, the structure is not there. The funding is not very clear. The market is not very clear. Even if the product is good, you don't know where to sell it. Where are your customers, right? The journey becomes so stringent and hard. But at the same time, when you're in the corporate world, that you already have ongoing customers, but you put the icing on the cake, and you start selling on top of that, and it's faster. The only thing that in the corporate world is becoming agile and innovating and developing fast and getting into the market fast is the challenge. Besides that, everything else is very exciting in the corporate world to bring it to the market and expand if you do it correctly. So that's why, coming to your previous question and aligning this as well, is that's why, one of the reasons that Frost & Sullivan brought someone like me from outside, saying that maybe we need an entrepreneurial spirit within to drive this craziness at certain level, and look at how things can be transformed in a faster pace.
Mm-hmm. So would you think that a lot of entrepreneurs maybe that will not succeed with whatever they have started would definitely be of great benefit to these big corporations because they have this entrepreneurial spirit and literally having this new kind of era of entrepreneurs within corporations? Do you see that growing?
I think if you look at the global market, right, definitely all organization, one of the key term, well, today it's sustainability, but if you look at last 5 to 7 years, has been innovation, right? So innovation, I think, in the corporate world is nothing but entrepreneur journey, right? Finding something new and building something new and expanding that into the market. So innovation has always been a key word in that organization. But I see that there's more and more synergy coming into. So, and venturing into what we call startups or startup ecosystem by corporates. And you can see that more and more now, right? One of the reasons for there are multiple reasons to it, but I believe there's one of the reason is disruption due to technology. The world is becoming more flat, more open, more borderless, right? So based on that, if you see, what is happening is that the life cycle of innovation is becoming shorter. So what does that mean is if you have a product today, if that product was unique for let's say 10 years before, it's there for less than 3 years now, right? So life cycle of innovation is becoming, so the life cycle of mega trends are becoming shorter. So you need to really work fast, develop fast, and the fastest way of expansion is acquisition, right? And if you see in today's corporate world, you can see, I just read something, right? So Adobe just acquired a company for 20 billion. So there's a lot of acquisition coming in the corporate world to expand and be relevant in the industry, and it's like a Lego block building the block for itself. So yes, I see it becoming more and more relevant and more getting into this kind of environment where the convergence between corporate entrepreneurship and a serial entrepreneur will happen.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I believe the same thing. In many of the countries, the large corporations are now looking into acquiring or partnering up with smaller organizations. Even in Mongolia, we have the case as well, where our top large organizations are now creating venture capitals, are now acquiring smaller startups. So really, entrepreneurs have this growth field with their own startup, but also being acquired by large venture capital companies. So I believe that really entrepreneurship itself will become much more important, and especially also with the employees and just with everybody surrounding. I always say that you have to kind of have this entrepreneur spirit somehow within you, even on a daily basis, just when you look at problems or just when you think about your daily life. Because once you get into that spirit, as you mentioned, because of the way of life, it makes it actually much more easier to try and solve problems when you have this entrepreneur spirit. So I believe that this entrepreneurship word per se will be, you know, almost in every sector, in every almost like part of our language later on, because it will be so crucial to have the spirit within you, even if you're not like, you know, having your own company or a startup. So definitely, I believe that this is something that will grow as well. And we have a question from the audience, which I think you know, fits well with the question before. So as a corporate entrepreneur, entrepreneur in charge of global growth of your organization, what do you think are the major challenges that you face in the global market environment?
Thanks. This is an interesting question, right? So so based on that, as a corporate entrepreneur in charge of the global growth, as mentioned. Sorry, I'm just seeing the question. Okay, so so one thing that I see. Let me just one of the things that we're doing is we're having a huge customer experience transformation through digital integration within Frost, right? So we just launched what we call a Growth Innovation Leadership Council digital app. So the council has been working with the web and the human interface for last 5 to 7 years. So and now getting into transformation on, you know, becoming a more digital aspect of it and building a team. When we come into that environment, it's no more only about the organization. So it's not only about people that we are working with, right? So there's so what we need to understand, right? Yeah, in a startup, it's a blank sheet, right? And we always say it's easier to draw in a blank sheet, right? But but when there is already a structure around it, we have to ensure that that structure remains and goes forward with us. So one of the biggest challenge that we see is we don't impact the current operations or the revenue out there, and also we don't impact the customer experience that's already having out there. But at the same time, the biggest challenge or equation is how do you transform that particular customer experience and growth into the new bucket or the new innovation that we bring in, right? So it's not like switching off and switching on, but it's about transitioning and taking this experience and making it as seamless as possible, but taking to a trajectory of the new transformation and growth as well. So that is the biggest challenge I see. It brings in cultural transformation, it brings in revenue transformation, it brings in product transformation, it brings in operational transformation, right? So a lot of transformation that goes into it, and that's a journey. It's a similar journey that comes into a lot of coaching, a lot of how do you bring that once the internal team is ready, how do you communicate with the customer? How do you ensure that it is very seamless when it comes to it? So that is the biggest challenge in corporate world as we see. And if that synergy is broken, then yes, definitely, then the revenue and the projection and the adoption doesn't happen. But if you look at the entrepreneurship that we do, we build a product, have an idea, we develop a solution around that idea, then we immediately take it into the market, and then we start pushing really hard. And after one yes, no, then we just keep on going, right? So when you start from zero, it's a very different environment vis-a-vis when there's already a situation and we want to transform that situation from A to B. Is a very different scenario. So that's the biggest challenge I see in the corporate entrepreneurship right now.
Mm-hmm. So I will definitely ask the audience to either post your questions in the question Q&A box, so you can write it. you're more than welcome to ask any type of questions. But from my side, really taking the opportunity, but also talking about YEGAP itself. So as you're now chairing YEGAP, the Young Entrepreneurship Group of Asia Pacific, having had this, background of being an entrepreneur yourself, leading the Nepalese Entrepreneurship Group, leading now Asia Pacific Entrepreneurship Group, but having moved to the States, where do you see the opportunities now for entrepreneurs in Asia Pacific? As I'm sure we have a lot of people in the audience from the Asia Pacific area. So where do you see the opportunities? What advice would you give for entrepreneurs in that region?
Great. So thanks. I think Asia definitely has been underplayed for very long, right? So because of the economic dynamics, it's the largest continent, and in terms of size or even in terms of population, right? So, but one of the beauty of Asia today is it's one of the fastest developing economies, right? So when you talk about true opportunities, that's why I would like to segment it, right? So I cannot talk as Asia as a whole. Definitely, we can be as Asia, we can be a server for the world, right? So what does it mean is in terms of food, in terms of services, in terms of manufacturing, and we can see that happening in a very large manner, right? So countries like China and India has taken over, given their population and dynamic and country strategies. But at the same time, you can see countries like Singapore, UAE, Australia, Japan really thrive in the developed economy scenario as well. So it's a very highly integrated environment as you see that. The second aspect is becoming very new into developing into the economy. It gives us an opportunity to leapfrog. So what does that mean is Asia can highly focus into future technologies, including artificial intelligence, or even implement future technologies faster, quicker, maybe cheaper as well, right? And better as well, given the foundation is again, is blank at the moment, or minimal at the moment. So given that it's a technological enhancement is very big opportunity. Given the such a diversified environment, I think I see a huge opportunity around agricultural as well, becoming a food supply given the landscape and the diversity that we see. One of the biggest challenge, and I think that's what we're trying to solve, is also how can we see Asia as an integrated market is something that we need to work around in a cross-border environment for economic development as well. The last one I would like to bring in again around sustainability, climate change, and others as well is doing what we are doing. I think we have to be a little bit more responsible in terms of how we utilize the resources, from natural resources to even human resources to our monetary resources as well. So those are a few things that I think we have a lot of opportunity and aspect to look after.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So we have also a few more questions from the audience. One of them, as you mentioned, innovation and funding are some of the key factors in achieving enterprise growth. So what resources do you need to help you attain these objectives?
Right. Yeah. So one of the biggest fuel is a continuous vision, right? So we talk about visionary leadership and a lot, and the vision is something that brings in a lot of innovation into into the organization, right? So where do you want to take the company? How do you want to see the future? Where do you see the company in next 5 to 7 years, 10 years, right? So the vision part is very, very important. And how do you articulate that particular vision into defined strategies is something that, how do you bring that 30,000 feet vision to a 5 feet strategy so that it's tangible in terms of success, in terms of getting revenue or customer acquisition or so on, experience or so on and so forth, right? Those are the key factors. And then comes the funding, right? So like any other business, then comes the funding. So once it is viable, then funding comes in terms of multiple resources, right? So it's not only money, but it's about providing resources and getting investing into maturing that particular idea. The second aspect is, before the funding comes in, is about piloting, showing some kind of success with a pilot set of customers, that the adoption is there, and the customer experience defines at certain level, right? So that is very important before you come into growth stage. So even within the enterprise growth, when you look at the future, we go through almost similar process of bringing it in the lab, looking at it, uh, working with the internal team, convincing the internal team that this is something that in particular practice area, something the customers will like or adopt to, and that will help us grow our business exponentially. And once that is done, then we go into the pilot customers, and then we pilot that with the customers. And once that is done, we co-create with the customer at the same time. And at the same time, once that is done, then we go exponentially into the market for global expansion, right? So global expansion happens in multiple aspects. So depending on the solution product that is coming out, we first look at the region. So, and within that region, we pick a country, and then based on that, we expand into the region. Once we stabilize that region, then we get into multiple regions. So it can be North America to start with, then go to APAC, then come to Middle East, then South Asia, Europe. So so there's a sequencing done when we go into that as well. But at the same time, some of the products are stable, and we can have a global launch as well. So it's very, very interesting way of looking at when you do a global business into that. So I hope I answered your question.
And similar to actually what you have already answered, one of our people from the audience asks, can you elaborate more about market expanding policy and how to define our major or potential customers?
Right. I think I touched it a bit on the equation, but yes, the policies for expansion are very specific, right? So one, we look at that particular problem and the market that we are solving that for, having a maximum impact. Second, based on that impact, where is the maximum revenue that comes in for us, right? Third, then we look at the friendliness of the customer, right? So acceptance for change. So it's not only within the organization, but also the live customers that is there, who is open to changing environment for better things, right? So so this is something that we look at very rigorously when we go into market expansion, and we don't go into we announce it globally, but the expansion happens in a rollout manner from a region to region.
So just from your kind of personal view, what advice or what would you tell the young people, especially from our region, if they want to become entrepreneurs? What advice would you give them?
So I'll start with a small story that I experienced, right? So let's say about almost 20 years ago. 15, I'm not so old, but yeah, maybe 15, 16 years ago. So when I used to go to a classroom, when we used to go to a classroom in a university, and uh, and then ask, oh, how many of you want to become an entrepreneur? Uh, well, less than 10% raised their hand, right? Saying, and the reason being, first, they didn't understand entrepreneurship. They thought that it was a lot of struggle, no money, right? And uh, and a lot of things around it. So people always look for stability and a safer path, right? So the road most traveled, you have a gravel road, so you're safer out there. So, but that is one of the biggest thing, right? And one of the article that came in where I was interviewed was fear of fear of failure has inhibited entrepreneurship, right? So when there's fear of failure, because of fear of failure, because it's so uncertain, people don't get into entrepreneurship, and that comes a lot within Asia as our culture, right? We're not allowed to fail. Failing is bad, right? And that aspect of generalizing failure, I think, is culturally not correct for innovation, right? So like Thomas Edison mentioned, right? He didn't test 1,000 ways in a wrong way, but he found out 1,000 ways how not to do it, right? To light a bulb. So how you look at that aspect of innovation and promoting that failing towards the right direction is correct, is very, very important, right? So this is something that I think we have to bring into our entrepreneurial culture in Asia, because we come from a certain culture as well, at least in Nepal, but I think majority of Asia is defined by traditional values and culture as well. So I would say that, we have to come out of our cocoon and say that, we have to try something new, jump into the pool, try to save yourself before you learn how to swim, right? So that's the kind of culture that we should come in. But having said that, again, I'll always relate the corporate thing. We should not always remain like that. One of the things that we also don't do too well is being structured, right? To grow. So that agility and fearlessness gets you to certain levels. So it gets you out of the pool, but it doesn't make you a great swimmer, right? So we need that structure for exponential growth. How do you bring in that springboard and expand exponentially? Is something that I think we should really look into, and look at building that culture of transition from being unstructured to a structured growth environment.
Mm-hmm. So we are actually already close to our final words, and I really want to take this opportunity because, as I mentioned, our guest today was more special in terms of the first two sessions. We had people that are entrepreneurs doing their thing, still kind of within this entrepreneurship journey. But now we have somebody who, first of all, is the chairman of YEGAP, and second of all, is part of two worlds. Entrepreneurship, has, done entrepreneurship himself, but now is also helping in terms of corporate entrepreneurship. So I really want to also use this time, because we will be, recording this and uploading this video to whoever is looking at this. Also take the opportunity to talk about just YEGAP. So as the chairman, where do you see YEGAP is going? Because I mean, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are, entrepreneurs, young people ourselves from all over Asia Pacific, who are just really coming together with the passion to ignite entrepreneurship throughout the region. So as the chairman, where do you see our vision of YEGAP?
Thanks, Khulan. So, and first of all, I'd like to thank Khulan and all my executive committee as well on bringing this particular YEGAP to life again, right? And also the Secretariat of CACCI. where I see YEGAP as we imagine is becoming a platform that we network on inspiring over 50,000 young entrepreneurs in Asia, right? So that is the biggest KPI I think we are holding right now. And given the environment of COVID and the virtuality that we have adopted, I think we've had a good start as well. Beyond that, we see ourselves not only being a network of great entrepreneurs in Asia, but even within globally between the continents, right? So we're already working on young entrepreneurs with EU and LATAM and so on and so forth, right? So with Michael and everyone. So that is something that we want to really prepare Asia for tomorrow. So that's where I see YEGAP will play a very key role on preparing that particular foundation. Thirdly, I think we want to be very influential in terms of policy for the future, right? So cross-border policies, especially, and trading policies around it, and maybe even entrepreneurial policies around it. So a lot of things around policies and sustainability. The third part is where we see is also becoming an ecosystem where we can promote startups, right? So how do we bring in startups and promote them and be part of that funding ecosystem as well, and really have them have more unicorns out of Asia as well. The other aspect is collaboration, right? So between multiple countries and multiple partners that we talk about, how do we collaborate and expand our business together as well? And lastly, yes, while doing all of this, have fun, make friends, and get to know each other and stay young forever.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We only have a few minutes left, so I just want to sum it up. First of all, give a huge thank you to Mangesh for taking his time and being our guest today. And also, really, whoever is listening in, whoever wants to be part of YEGAP as well. I mean, entrepreneurship itself has been a trend somewhat, but I do believe that entrepreneurs are really the ones now shaping the world, creating, solutions, coming up with solutions to most of the complex problems in this world. So it is definitely something that everybody kind of should ignite within themselves. So as mentioned, there are entrepreneurs on one side, but it shouldn't be just one field. Also, as we have seen today with Mangesh and his experience, corporates are now also, having within themselves this entrepreneurial spirit. And as I mentioned, in my experience, also just people on a daily level should have somewhat of this entrepreneurial spirit in order to really solve problems much better, in order to really think out of the box. So I think today's session also showed how entrepreneurship can also be ignited within the corporate world, so that it will definitely become a much bigger topic in itself. And whoever is listening in today, you're very much welcome to become a member of the YEGAP group. YEGAP Talks is just one little thing that we're doing, created by the learning and networking community. But if you follow our social media, then you will definitely see that there is so much more. And as we are part of the bigger CACCI group, do follow CACCI as well to really look about, see events, networking, events, other things that are really supporting entrepreneurship. And whatever you're doing, if you want to become part, then definitely follow us. So I really hope that today's session did inspire also the corporate world to have entrepreneurship inside their field. And I do hope that whoever was listening in had an interesting session. Please stay tuned for our upcoming other sessions, because we will be doing this on a permanent level, regular level. And I hope that everybody has a good day. Thank you so much, and see you during the next YEGAP Talks.